The ancient forest of Elderleaf stood quiet in the morning mist as Alara Nightshadow moved silently between the towering trees. Her emerald skin glowed faintly in the shadows, and her long silver hair flowed behind her like moonlight on water. She wore layers of dark fabric covering every inch of her body except for her face. Her silver eyes reflected centuries of pain and isolation. Alara had not touched another living being for 30 years. Not since the great magical fracture tore through the realms and left her cursed. Anyone who touched her bare skin turned instantly to dust. Soldiers, healers, friends, family, all gone in moments of accidental contact. Only Fire Talon remained. The obsidian dragon with eyes like burning coals followed her through the forest. His scales absorbed the sunlight rather than reflected it, making him seem like a moving shadow in the woods. Though only the size of a large horse, he possessed power that made the ground tremble beneath his clawed feet. For reasons unknown, the dragon could touch Alara without suffering the deadly consequence that befell others. This morning, Alara sensed something different in the forest. The animals were quiet. The birds had stopped singing. She glanced upward through the canopy and saw faint trails of smoke in the distance. They come again. Fire Talon growled in her mind, his thoughts reaching hers through their mystical bond. Alara nodded. The war between the Elven sovereignty and the human federation had escalated again. Despite living as an outcast from her own kind, Alara still felt the pain of Elven lands burning. Each ancient tree in Elderleaf had stood for thousands of years before humans ever set foot on this continent. Now they fell to human weapons and fire. She adjusted her gloves, pulling the worn fabric higher up her wrists. No skin could be exposed when they traveled near others. The risk was too great. Fire Talon raised his head, sniffing the air. His nostrils flared, sending twin wisps of smoke. Curling upward, Elven scouts approached from the east. Alara felt her heart quicken. Encounters with her own kind were rare and never welcome. The Elven sovereignty had first tried to use her as a weapon when her curse manifested. Those attempts ended with the deaths of 12 Elven warriors when her containment suit tore during transport. After that, they declared her Rakiza unclean, one to be avoided at all costs. Yet during times of war, they always remembered her power. The scouts appeared like ghosts among the trees. 4 of them dressed in the silver and green of the Elderleaf Brigade. They stopped 20 paces from Alara, maintaining a safe distance. They knew who she was, what she was. Rakiza, Dust Witch, the lead scout called. The Council demands your presence. Alara remained still, her face betraying no emotion. Fire Talon moved closer to her, his body heat warming her side. I refuse to be your weapon, she replied, her voice raspy from disuse. I have told your council this many times. The scout held up a sealed scroll with the mark of High Commander Cylindra. This comes from the High Commander herself. Your presence is not requested. It is commanded. The humans have broken through our eastern defenses. Their ships bring weapons that turn our ancient groves to ash. Our people die by the thousands. Alara felt a flicker of anger. These scouts would use guilt to manipulate her. They would remind her of her elven blood, her responsibility to her kind. But where was their concern when she wandered homeless for decades? Fire Talon huffed a small flame, escaping his jaws. The scouts stepped back, fear evident in their eyes. The High Commander once called you friend. The scout continued. She offers you sanctuary in return for your service. Alara laughed, a hollow sound that echoed through the trees. Sanctuary. She needs no sanctuary. She needs no friends. The only friend she ever needed stood beside her. She needs no service from the sovereignty. She said, I am not your weapon. The lead scout placed the scroll on the ground and backed away. The humans will find you eventually, Rakiza. When they do, they will not offer you the dignity we do. They will study you, cut you apart to understand your power. You have seen what they do to our kind. The scouts melted back into the forest, leaving the scroll on the mossy ground. Alara waited until she was certain they had gone before approaching. She used a stick to unroll the parchment, reading the elegant elven script, Alara Nightshadow, by order of High Commander Cylindra. You are hereby commanded to position yourself at the Moonfall Pass. The Human Federation forces advance through this corridor. Their numbers are great, but your gift can turn the tide. Position yourself where their soldiers must. Pass, let them touch you, let them all turn to dust. The letter continued with details of the human advance, their weapons, their tactics. Elara read it all, then used her magic to burn the scroll to ash which swirled around her fingers without harm. They never learn. Fire Talon commented, his voice rumbling in her mind. They see only your curse, never you. That night Elara watched from a high ridge as Federation bombers flew over Elderleaf Grove, the ancient heart of the forest, the place where she was, born, where she had played as a child, where she had fallen in love before the curse took everything from her. Orange flames licked the darkness as trees that had witnessed the birth of the world fell to human weapons. The light reflected in Fire Talon's eyes as he perched beside her, his wings half extended as if he wished to fly into battle. We should go there, she thought to him. We could save the grove. The dragon turned his ancient gaze to her. The elves would use you. The humans would destroy you. Neither deserve your gift. Elara knew he was right. Yet the sight of her homeland burning tore at her heart. She had spent 30 years in isolation, trying to understand her curse, experimenting with different materials, creating barriers that would allow her some semblance of contact. She had documented everything in journals written with gloved hands. No cure had been found. Tomorrow she decided they would move deeper into the wilderness, away from both armies. But as Elara watched her birthplace burn, she felt something changing within her. Perhaps it was time to stop running. Perhaps it was time to find a different purpose for her curse. When dawn came, Elara and Fire Talon left their camp, moving north toward the mountains. Beyond them lay unexplored territories where perhaps she could find peace. Yet as they traveled, Elara sensed they were being followed. The sovereignty would not give up easily. They needed their dust witch now more than ever. And the humans, if they learned of her, power would hunt her as well. She was a weapon to some, a monster to others. But to herself she remained simply Elara, a woman cursed with a touch of death, longing for the one thing that seemed forever beyond reach: connection. The mountain caves offered Elara and Fire Talon shelter from the coming winter. The air grew colder with each passing day, and the dragon gathered extra wood for their fire. His massive claws easily uprooted dead trees, dragging them back to the cave, where Elara would break them into smaller pieces with her magic. 30 years of isolation had taught Elara many skills. She could hunt with magic traps, create fire with a thought, and speak with the forest creatures. But these skills did little. To ease her loneliness, only Fire Talon kept her sane. His ancient wisdom and unwavering loyalty gave her purpose. Tonight they sat in their cave as snow fell outside. Elara wrote in her journal, documenting another failed attempt to control her curse. She had tried focusing her power into a crystal, hoping to draw the death magic from her skin. The crystal had shattered instantly, turning to fine dust. Fire Talon watched her with eyes that reflected the firelight. You cannot remove what has become part of you, he said in her mind. His thoughts carried sadness. Elara closed her journal, wrapping it carefully in protective cloth. These journals represented decades of research, 30 years of hoping for a cure, 30 years of failure. She remembered. The day the curse began, the great magical fracture had torn across the lands like a storm of light and darkness. She had been with her brother Lorith at the sacred pool. The magic struck them both, but while Lorith emerged unharmed, Elara collapsed. When she woke, her brother helped her stand, took her hand, and turned to dust before her eyes. After that, it was the same with everyone who touched her. The sovereignty quarantined her, studied her. Some brave healers tried to help, wearing layers of protection. One mistake. One tear in their protective clothing, and they were gone. A touch of finger to skin and living beings became nothing. Only Fire Talon survived touching her. The dragon had found her wandering the wilderness, half mad with grief and loneliness. He touched her snout to her hand and remained solid. The magic recognized something in him, something ancient and compatible. What do you think the humans will do next? Elara asked, watching sparks float upward from their fire. They We'll push deeper into elven territory. Fire Talon answered. The Forest of Whispers will fall next. Then the Crystal Lakes. Your people cannot match their weapons. Ilara frowned. The elves were still her people, even if they feared her, even if they only remembered her when they needed a weapon. She had grown up among them, learned magic from the elven masters, fallen in love with an elven warrior, all gone now. 3 moons passed with Ilara and Fire Talon living in their mountain sanctuary. They ventured, out only for supplies and to scout the movements of both armies. The war intensified with each passing day. Human ships brought more soldiers, more weapons. The elves retreated deeper into their ancient territories, abandoning lands they had protected. For thousands of years, Ilara felt the loss of each sacred grove. Each magical spring, each temple and monument. The humans did not understand what they destroyed. Places of power, knowledge, wisdom gone forever. On the 4th moon, Fire Talon returned. From hunting with troubling news elven warriors approach, he warned. 6 of them heavily armed. They track us deliberately. Ilara prepared herself, pulling on her protective clothing covering every inch of skin. She wore special gloves made from dragon, scales gifted by Fire Talon. They provided the safest barrier between her cursed flesh and the world. The elven warriors arrived at sunset. Their armor gleamed with enchantments and their eyes showed determination, not fear. They were Cylindra's personal, guard elite warriors loyal only to the High Commander Rakiza, their leader called. We bring word from High Commander Cylindra. Ilara stood at the cave entrance, Fire Talon beside her, his massive body tense, ready to attack if needed. I have already refused your commander's request, she said. Tell her again I am not her weapon. The leader stepped forward holding a crystal orb, a communication device rare and valuable. This is not a request. This time Cylindra wishes to speak to you directly. Ilara hesitated, then nodded. The warrior placed the orb on a flat stone and stepped back. The crystal glowed and projected an image of Cylindra. The High Commander looked tired, her normally perfect appearance now marked by strain. Her silver armor bore scorch marks and her eyes held shadows. Ilara, my old friend, Cylindra's voice echoed from the crystal. I would not ask this of you if our need were not desperate. Once they had been friends, training together in the magical arts, sharing secrets, dreams. Hope Cylindra had been the first to visit Ilara after the curse, the only one who dared come close. But after the curse took her brother, Commander Loreth. Cylindra stayed away. You ask me to kill Ilara, replied. I ask you to save what remains of our people, Cylindra countered. The humans have weapons that turn our magic against us. They have devices that detect our presence. They hunt us like animals. Soon nothing will remain of our culture, our history. The trees that have stood since the world began fall to their machines. Ilara felt her resolve weakening. She had no love for humans their ancestors had always sought to conquer, to control, to destroy what they did not understand. But I cannot control who I touch, she argued. You know this. Your soldiers would be at risk. Cylindra nodded. We have created a containment suit that will allow you to control your curse. Only your hands will be exposed, and only when you choose. A soldier stepped forward holding a black suit that shimmered. With magic, Ilara studied it, recognizing runes of containment, control, and protection. The elven artificers had outdone themselves. What exactly do you ask of me? Ilara questioned, the human command center. Cylindra replied. Their leaders gather in 3 days to plan their final assault. If you eliminate them, their forces will fall into chaos, giving us time to evacuate our most sacred sites. Fire Talon growled softly. They wish to use you, then discard you again. Ilara considered the request. The suit would give her control, something she had sought for decades, but using her curse as a weapon. That was different from finding a cure. Before she could answer, a distant boom echoed through the mountains. The cave trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. Human bombers, the lead warrior shouted. They have found us. Fire Talon roared, spreading his wings. The elven warriors drew weapons, forming a protective circle. The crystal orb showing Cylindra cracked and went dark. Alara felt anger rising within her. The humans had tracked the elven warriors to her sanctuary. Her home now both sides hunted her. The elves to use her, the humans to destroy her. Neither seeing her as a person, only as a weapon or a threat. In that moment she made her decision. Taking the containment suit from the warrior, she nodded. I will help you, but on my terms, not as your weapon but as an ally. The lead warrior began to speak, but Fire Talon interrupted. Another explosion closer this time. We must leave now. Alara quickly gathered her journals as Fire Talon lowered his body. The dragon could carry her and one other. The rest would have to find their own way. Lead warrior Alara called, You come with us. The others must scatter. Draw the humans away from us, as they took to the sky. Riding the powerful dragon, Alara looked back at her mountain sanctuary flames now visible at its base. Her isolation had ended. Whether she wanted it or not, she had joined the war, and both sides would soon learn the true power of her curse. Lieutenant Olivia Walsh crouched behind a fallen tree as rain poured from the night sky. She adjusted her tactical goggles, wiping away the water that blurred her vision. The storm had separated her from her squad, leaving her alone in enemy territory. Human Federation Special Operations had intercepted unusual elven communications, mentioning something called the Dust Witch intelligence. Suggested this was a biological weapon the elves planned to deploy against human forces. General Diane Porter had personally selected Olivia to lead the reconnaissance mission, find this weapon and neutralize it. The general had ordered, We cannot allow the elves to deploy something that might turn the tide. Olivia had never failed a mission. She didn't intend to start now. But this storm complicated everything. Her communication device showed only static and her navigation system struggled to maintain satellite connection. Even her advanced thermal sensors seemed confused, showing strange heat signatures that appeared and disappeared. Lightning flashed, illuminating the ancient trees around her. The elves called this the Whispering Wood. Humans called it Sector 7. Either way, it was dangerous territory. The trees themselves seemed alive, watching, judging. A strange sound caught her attention. Not the storm, not animals. Something else. Olivia checked her rifle and moved forward, keeping low. Her boots sank into mud as she navigated around massive roots and fallen branches. The sound grew louder, a rhythmic whooshing like giant wings, then a low rumble that she felt in her chest more than heard. The rain suddenly lessened, and Olivia realized she had reached a small clearing. A massive shape landed on the far side. Olivia froze. Her breath caught in her throat. A dragon. The creature was midnight black with scales that absorbed the moonlight. Its eyes glowed like embers in the darkness. Massive and terrible. It folded wings that could block out the sun. A figure dismounted from the dragon, slender form wrapped in strange black material that seemed to absorb light similar to the dragon's scales. The elven weapon, Olivia thought her finger moved to her rifle trigger. The figure spoke words in the ancient elven tongue, and a small light appeared hovering above them. Olivia could now see it was a female elf. Her skin had an unusual emerald tint, and her eyes reflected silver in the magical light. She wore an elaborate outfit that covered every inch of her body, except her face. The material shimmered with runes and symbols Olivia didn't recognize. The dragon turned suddenly, looking directly at Olivia's hiding place. She knows we are here. The dragon growled its voice, somehow entering Olivia's mind. Olivia gasped. Dragons didn't speak. Her training hadn't prepared her for this. The elf woman turned, looking toward Olivia's position. A human, she said, her voice soft, yet carrying clearly through the rain. We mean you no harm. If you mean us none. Show yourself. Olivia considered her options. She could try to escape, but the dragon would likely catch her. She could shoot, but her weapon might not harm either creature. She could call for backup, but her communications were still dead. Slowly, she stood, keeping her rifle lowered but ready. "I'm Lieutenant Olivia Walsh, Human Federation Special Operations," she announced. "I am here under Federation authority." The elf woman studied her, curious rather than hostile. "You are far from your people, Lieutenant." the elven woman said. Her voice carried an accent that made human words sound like music. Were you separated in the storm? Olivia stepped closer, noticing how the elf woman tensed with each step. Are you the one they call the Dust Witch? She asked directly. The elven woman flinched as if struck. Her silver eyes widened. Then she laughed a hollow sound without joy. Is that what your people call me? An interesting name, I suppose. The elves call me Rakiza, the Unclean One. My true name is Alara. Night Shadow, the dragon, moved closer to the elf protectively, its massive head lowered to study Olivia. She smells different, the creature said again in that strange mental voice. She carries old magic in her blood? Olivia frowned. What did that mean? What magic? What blood? The Federation scientists had discovered that some humans carried genetic markers from the time before the Great Separation, when humans and elves had supposedly lived together. She had such markers, but they were considered meaningless. Evolutionary leftovers. I am looking for a weapon. Olivia said you match the description. Alara smiled sadly, holding up her gloved hands. I am the weapon, Lieutenant. Though not by choice. Never by choice. Lightning flashed, followed immediately by thunder. The storm intensified again. The ground beneath them trembled. The dragon's head snapped up, looking skyward. Federation bombers, the dragon growled. They followed her. More lightning flashed, but this time Olivia recognized it wasn't natural. The distinctive blue glow of plasma cannons illuminated the clouds. Human weapons targeting this area, we need to move, Olivia shouted without thinking. Take cover. The ground exploded nearby, sending all three of them tumbling. The dragon roared as debris struck its wings. Ilara fell hard, rolling toward the edge of a sudden ravine created by the blast. Her hands clawed at the ground, seeking purchase. Olivia reacted instinctively, diving forward, grabbing for the falling elf. Her hand closed around Ilara's wrist where the glove had torn away, revealing emerald skin time. Seemed to slow Ilara. Looked at their connected hands, horror in her silver eyes. The dragon bellowed a warning. Olivia felt a strange tingling sensation where their skin touched, but nothing more. Nothing happened. Ilara stared at their joined hands, shock replacing fear. Nothing happened, she whispered. You touched me. Olivia pulled her to safety, confused by the elf's reaction. What do you mean? Another explosion rocked the clearing, closer this time. The dragon moved toward them, shielding them, both with its massive body. We must leave now, Fire Talon insisted. Get on without time to think. Olivia found herself climbing onto the dragon's back behind Ilara. The elf remained stunned, staring at her own hand, then at Olivia's. Hold tight. Ilara, finally, said, wrapping Olivia's arms around her waist, making sure the human gripped her clothed parts. Do not let go. The dragon called Firetail and spread its enormous wings and leapt into the stormy sky. The ground fell away as they climbed higher than the tallest trees. Lightning flashed around them, but the dragon navigated with incredible skill. The bombers appeared as distant lights through the clouds, but seemed unaware of the dragon rising behind them. Olivia held on tight, amazed and terrified. Her mind raced. What was happening? Why had the elf woman expected something when they touched? What was this Dust Witch business really about? They flew for what seemed like hours before Firetail descended toward a mountainside. A narrow opening, barely visible in the rock face, led to a small cave. The dragon landed, allowing them to dismount before squeezing its massive body through the entrance. Inside the cave was surprisingly comfortable. Glowing crystals provided soft light, furs and woven mats covered the floor. A small pool of clear water bubbled in one corner. Strange symbols covered the walls, protective magic. Olivia guessed, the moment they were safe. Ilara turned to Olivia, her silver eyes intense with wonder and confusion. You touched my skin, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Do you understand what that means? For 30 years, everyone who touched my bare skin turned instantly to dust. Everyone, my brother, my friends, healers who tried to help me, warriors who tried to capture me. All of them gone in moments. Yet you touched me and remain. Olivia shook her head. This makes no sense. Magic isn't real. It's just science. We don't understand. Yet Ilara reached toward her, then stopped. Her hand hovered inches from Olivia's face. Should we try again? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. To be sure. The dragon watched them intently. The old prophecy, it rumbled. The one who does not turn. Olivia hesitated. She didn't believe in magic or prophecies or curses. But something extraordinary had happened. Something that clearly shocked both the elf and her dragon companion. Slowly, Olivia nodded. Ilara carefully removed her glove, revealing slender emerald fingers that trembled slightly. Then, with extreme caution, she reached out and touched Olivia's cheek. The touch was warm, gentle. Nothing more. Nothing deadly. Nothing magical. Just contact between two living beings. Tears filled Ilara's silver eyes, the first human contact in 3 decades that didn't end in death. How Ilara whispered, "Why you, Olivia?" had no answer, only questions, and a strange feeling that everything she believed about this war, about elves, about herself, was about to change. Dawn light filtered through cracks in the cave wall as Ilara sat cross-legged on a woven mat. Her journals spread around her in a circle, each one filled with 30 years of research experiments and failed attempts to understand her curse. Across from her, Lieutenant Olivia Walsh watched with fascination as the elf flipped through pages covered in elegant script. It makes no sense, Ilara said, closing her latest journal. No one has ever survived my touch, not even other elves, not even those with powerful protection spells. Yet you, a human, touch me without harm. Fire Talon lay curled at the back of the cave, his massive body somehow fitting into the space. The dragon had been quiet since their escape from the bombers last night, but his eyes remained fixed on Olivia. We need to understand why, Ilara continued. This could be important. Not just for me, but for ending this war. Olivia ran her fingers through her short brown hair. Her Federation uniform was still damp from the storm mud, caking the reinforced fabric. She had removed her tactical gear but kept her sidearm close. A habit from years of military training. Even in this strange situation with an elf who should be her enemy, she maintained protocol. What tests can we run? Olivia asked. Her scientific mind approached the problem methodically. The Federation would consider her a traitor for even speaking with the enemy. But this discovery felt bigger than the war. It felt important in ways she couldn't yet understand. Ilara stood and moved to a wooden chest in the corner of the cave. She returned with a small knife, a crystal vial, and several strips of cloth. Need your blood, Ilara said simply. Just a small amount. For testing? Olivia hesitated, then nodded. She held out. Her hand, Ilara carefully pricked Olivia's finger with the knife, collecting several drops of blood in the crystal vial. The blood glowed faintly in the container. Interesting, Ilara murmured. Very interesting. She placed the vial in a wooden stand, then pricked her own finger. Her blood was darker with a greenish tint. When she mixed the 2 samples together, they swirled, creating patterns like galaxies. The dragon raised his head, watching closely. Old magic, he rumbled. The bloodlines meet again. What does that mean? Olivia asked. Ilara shook her head. I don't know exactly. But something in your blood is different from other humans. It resonates with mine despite our different species. Fire Talon moved closer, his enormous head hovering over them. Before the Great Divide, when elves and humans lived as one, there were mixed bloodlines, the dragon explained. The ancient families carried magic from both races. Some humans still carry those markers dormant, but present. Olivia frowned. She had heard stories of ancient connections between humans and elves. But Federation science dismissed such tales as myths created by elven propaganda to justify their claim to magical superiority. Is there a way to test for these markers? Olivia asked. Ilara nodded. We can. But first I want to try something else. She reached into another chest, pulling out a small cloth pouch. From it she extracted a pinch of silver powder. "This is dust," she explained. "From the last person who touched me, a healer who tried to help. 5 years ago, she sprinkled the dust onto their mixed blood sample. The dust glowed briefly, then dissolved. My curse still exists," Ilara said. "But something in your blood neutralizes it." Days passed as Ilara and Olivia continued their experiments. They discovered that Olivia's immunity was genetic, a rare marker that appeared in approximately 1 in 10,000 humans. Theoretically, other humans with this marker could also touch Ilara safely. But that wasn't all. Fire Talon revealed that he recognized something about Olivia's bloodline, something ancient and significant. The dragon became increasingly protective of both women, often standing guard while they slept or worked. Ilara taught Olivia about elven history, magic, and culture. Olivia shared Federation knowledge, science, and technology. Together they pieced together a picture. Neither side in the war wanted, acknowledged. Their peoples were connected. More than connected. They were once the same. On the 7th day, Fire Talon returned from hunting with troubling news. "Both armies search for you now," he told them. "The elves believe you have defected to the humans. The humans believe their lieutenant has been captured. They converge on this region. We need to move." Olivia said, gathering their research materials. Ilara nodded. "Where do we go?" Olivia considered the question. Neither side would welcome them now. Neither side would believe what they had discovered. The humans would call it elven manipulation. The elves would call it human lies. "There are ruins," Ilara said suddenly. "Ancient ruins from before the Great Divide. Moonfall Temple in the Valley of Whispers. My people consider it sacred ground. Your people consider it strategically unimportant. Both armies avoid it." Olivia nodded. That night they packed essentials and mounted Fire Talon flying. Under cover of darkness they headed toward the ancient temple. The dragon flew low, avoiding detection from both human and elven forces. The Valley of Whispers earned its name. Constant, soft sounds filled the air like countless voices speaking just below hearing range. The ruins of Moonfall Temple stood in the center of the valley. Massive stone structures partially reclaimed by nature, yet still magnificent. They landed in a courtyard, surrounded by towering columns of white stone. Ancient carvings decorated every surface, some in elven script, some in old human languages, some in symbols, neither recognized. "We should be safe here for a while," Ilara said as they explored the temple. "The magic here confuses tracking devices and detection spells." Olivia studied the carvings, her tactical flashlight illuminating symbols that seemed to shift and change as she looked at them. One particular wall caught her attention, a circular design, showing elven and human figures standing together, hands joined around them. Creatures that looked like dragons formed a protective circle. "Ilara, this looks important," Olivia called. The elf joined her, examining the carving with wide eyes. "This is old," she whispered. "Very old. From the time before the divide." She traced the symbols with her gloved finger, translating aloud. "When dust claims all but one, ancient enemies will unite, and the fracture shall heal." Both women looked at each other, the implication. "Clear my curse," Ilara said. "It was never random, it was part of something bigger." Something planned. Olivia pointed to another section of the carving. "The mixed blood shall bridge worlds severed. The forgotten child shall restore balance." They spent hours translating the ancient text, piecing together a story neither had been taught. A prophecy about a time when elves and humans would be forced to reunite, when ancient magic would return, when the artificial division between the races would heal. One passage mentioned a great magical fracture, not natural, but deliberately created to separate the races, to end the mixing of bloodlines, to preserve what some believed was purity. "Do you think?" Olivia hesitated. "My ability to touch you, that it's somehow connected to this prophecy?" Ilara nodded. "Someone or something engineered my curse. They used the great magical fracture to trigger it. But why? Why make me kill with a touch only to create a way for one specific human to break that curse?" Fire Talon had been exploring deeper chambers of the temple. He returned with excitement to bring the sides together, he said, to force cooperation. It was never about killing. It was about healing. The dragon led them to a chamber deep within the temple. There, on the floor was an enormous circular platform covered in runes that matched Ilara's curse marks, matched the genetic markers in Olivia's blood. In the center of the platform lay a small stone basin, ancient beyond measure, blood of both given freely. The dragon translated from symbols around the basin, "Will restore what hatred sundered." Ilara and Olivia looked at each other, understanding dawning. They were not random players in this war. They were chosen pieces in a game that had begun centuries before they were born. The next morning they awoke to distant explosions. The war had found them. Federation bombers flew overhead. Elven warriors approached from the forest, both armies converging on the temple. "They know we're here," Olivia said, checking her weapons out of habit. Though what good a rifle would do against two armies she couldn't say. Ilara stood at the temple entrance watching the forces approach. The humans from the north, the elves from the south. They would arrive at almost the same time. "We need to activate the temple," Ilara said. "The prophecy, the blood ritual. It's our only chance. Do you think it will work?" Olivia asked. Ilara took her hand. Skin, touching skin. "The simple contact still amazing after 30 years of isolation, I believe. We were meant to find each other," she said. "For this moment, for this purpose, we can end the war. Not with weapons or death, but with healing." Fire Talon spread his wings. "The time comes," he announced. "The armies approach. The final test begins." Together, they returned to the inner chamber, to the ancient platform, to the basin that waited for their blood. The first step toward healing centuries of division, and perhaps the only hope for peace. The morning sky filled with human aircraft as elven forces gathered at the edge of the forest surrounding Moonfall Temple. Birds fled the ancient trees as soldiers marched through the underbrush. The peaceful valley that had known only whispers for centuries now echoed with the sounds of war. Inside the temple, Ilara, Olivia, and Fire Talon made final preparations in the ritual chamber. The circular platform glowed faintly, responding to their presence. Ancient magic, dormant for generations, awakened slowly like a creature stirring from endless sleep. "We don't have much time," Olivia said. Her Federation tactical display showed enemy movements approaching from all directions. Her own people now considered her a traitor. They would shoot. Her on sight, Ilara nodded, adjusting her protective clothing for what might be the final time. "If this works," she said softly, "I may never need these barriers again." The thought both thrilled and terrified her. After 30 years of isolation, the possibility of touch of connection seemed almost too wonderful to believe. Fire Talon moved restlessly around the chamber, his massive body scraping against stone columns. His scales sparked against the ancient rock, leaving faint glowing trails. "The magic recognizes him," Ilara observed. "He is part of this somehow." Outside, the first shots were fired, human soldiers encountering elven scouts. The larger forces still approached, unaware they were about to clash with each other. Their focus remained on the temple, on capturing the Dust Witch and the human traitor. Ilara studied the stone basin at the center of the platform. The ancient text described a ritual requiring blood freely given from both elf and human. The combined blood would activate the temple's magic, potentially undoing the great fracture that had separated their peoples. "And cursed Ilara, are we sure this is the right thing to do?" Olivia asked, her voice steady, despite the circumstances. "If we heal the fracture, what happens to the world as we know it?" Ilara considered the question. The world as they knew it was one of endless war, of hatred and fear between species that should be allies. Everything she had learned from the temple carvings suggested the division was artificial, created by ancient powers who wanted the races separate. "Pure, my curse has taken hundreds of lives," she said. "I would give anything to end it." A massive explosion rocked the temple. Dust and small stones fell from the ceiling. Both armies had arrived. Their weapons now turned on the ancient structure. "Time to decide," Fire Talon urged. Olivia unsheathed her knife and approached the basin. "I choose healing," she said. "Over war, over division." She sliced her palm, allowing blood to drip into the stone bowl. Ilara removed her glove and did the same, her green-tinged blood mixing with Olivia's red. The combined blood began to glow, spreading outward along channels carved in the platform floor. The entire chamber hummed with power. The runes etched into every surface illuminated, one by one forming complex patterns that spiraled outward from the basin. Ancient machinery hidden within the walls activated, grinding and shifting after millennia of silence. Now Fire Talon commanded Ilara and Olivia placed their bleeding hands together. Their blood mingled. Their touch remained safe. No death, no dust, only connection. The temple responded. The floor beneath them shifted, revealing a massive crystal that rose from the center of the platform. It pulsed with light, absorbing the energy from their blood. From their touch, more explosions shook the structure. The armies outside grew closer, their weapons more focused on the temple walls. "We need more time," Ilara said. "The ritual isn't complete." Fire Talon moved to the temple entrance. "I will give you time." He rumbled. Without waiting for response, the massive dragon launched himself from the temple. His wings spread wide as he circled above the approaching armies. Outside, chaos erupted at the sight of the dragon. Both human and elven forces momentarily stopped their advance, staring upward at the creature most had only heard about in legends. Fire Talon breathed fire, not at the armies but in patterns above them. Ancient symbols that glowed in the morning sky. Inside the temple, the crystal continued to grow brighter. Ilara and Olivia remained connected by touch, by blood, by purpose. The magic flowed through them, recognizing the ancient bloodlines that both carried, responding to the prophecy being fulfilled. Suddenly the crystal pulsed, sending a shockwave through the temple, through the valley. The ground trembled, trees swayed, birds fell silent. The light from the crystal intensified, flooding the chamber with brilliance so intense that Ilara and Olivia had to close their eyes. The magic surrounded them, entered them, changed them. Their joined hands glowed with power, their mixed blood boiling away in pure energy. Outside, Fire Talon landed between the armies, his enormous body blocking the path to the temple. High Commander Cylindra rode at the front of the elven forces, her silver armor gleaming. Her eyes widened at the sight of the Dragon Federation. Commander Patricia Morgan led the human forces, her mechanized battle suit towering over her soldiers. She raised her plasma cannon, aiming at the dragon. "Neither of you will pass." Fire Talon announced, his mental voice reaching all present. "The prophecy fulfills itself today. The healing begins." "What nonsense is this?" Cylindra demanded. "We come for the traitor Ilara Nightshadow. She belongs to the sovereignty." Morgan stepped forward in her battlesuit. "The lieutenant is Federation property," she countered. "Any elven weapon she has falls under our jurisdiction." Fire Talon laughed, a rumbling sound that shook the earth. "They are neither yours," he told both commanders. "They belong to themselves and to the future." The shockwave from the temple reached the assembled armies, knocking soldiers to the ground. Human weapons failed, elven magic flickered and died. The ground beneath them began to glow, revealing runes identical to those inside the temple. Runes that had lain dormant for millennia. "These lands are sacred," Fire Talon explained. "You stand upon the birthplace of both your peoples, the place where the fracture began and where it now ends." Inside the temple, Ilara and Olivia screamed as the magic reached its peak. Their bodies lifted from the platform, suspended in the crystal light. Their blood, their cells, their very essence transformed. The curse that had defined Ilara's existence for 30 years unraveled, magic older and stronger than the curse recognized Olivia as the key, the missing piece. The crystal shattered, sending fragments throughout the chamber, throughout the temple. Each piece contained the combined essence of elf and human. The magic of unity, of healing. The shockwave expanded outward, reaching the waiting armies, passing through every soldier, every commander, elven and human alike. Each felt something change within them. Ancient hatreds softened, suspicions eased, not erased but tempered by understanding. When the light faded, Ilara and Olivia stood at the temple entrance hand in hand. Ilara wore no protective clothing. Her emerald skin glowed with health, with freedom. Her silver eyes held peace instead of sorrow. The curse gone, transformed. Olivia stood beside her, changed as well. Her human appearance remained, but something new flickered beneath the surface. A connection to magic, to the earth, to life itself. Her blood now carried activated elven markers awakened by the ritual. Phyretalon moved to join them, his scales no longer midnight black but silver shimmering in the sunlight. The dragon, too, had transformed. Cylindra dismounted, approaching cautiously. "Is it true?" she asked Ilara. "Is the curse gone?" Ilara nodded, extending her bare hand. The High Commander hesitated, then touched her fingers to Ilara's palm. Nothing happened. No dust. No death. Only contact. "What have you done?" Morgan demanded, her battlesuit powering down in response to the magical pulse. "We have healed the first wound," Olivia explained. "The artificial division between our peoples. We have activated the old magic. The magic of unity." Many soldiers from both sides stepped forward, curious, confused. The temple continued to pulse with energy. The magic spreading, healing, changing. Not everyone welcomed this change. Some elves retreated, fearful of losing their magical superiority. Some humans backed away, suspicious of anything that challenged their technological dominance. But others stayed, drawn by curiosity, by hope, by the possibility of something new, something better. In the days that followed, a small council formed, elves and humans who wished to understand what had happened at Moonfall Temple. Ilara and Olivia became its center, its heart. Leaders from both sides reluctantly acknowledged that something fundamental had changed. The war continued in distant lands, but here in this valley, a fragile peace took root. Ilara moved freely among both peoples for the first time. In 30 years, her touch now healed rather than destroyed. Where her fingers contacted, earth flowers bloomed. Plants thrived. The positive transformation of her curse. Olivia bridged the worlds of human science and elven magic, finding connections. Creating understanding, she discovered other humans with the ancient markers, brought them to the temple to awaken their dormant abilities. Phyretalon carried them between settlements, between councils, between battlefields, silver wings gleaming in sunlight. The dragon became symbol of the new unity, a reminder of the ancient times when all peoples lived in harmony. The war would not end quickly. Centuries of hatred could not be erased by a single ritual, but change had begun. The first seeds of peace planted in soil made fertile by understanding. And wherever Ilara walked, flowers bloomed from dust. Not the dust of death, but the dust of transformation. Each petal containing both elven and human magic. Each bloom a promise of what could be, what would be if they dared to reach out and touch.